Well.
Good morning, Minot. What's ND talk?
Yeah.
We're ready for another fun morning of breaking down some fun stuff that's happened over the last few days.
Except this week was weird.
It was weird.
Because city council got moved around, so our talks content kind of got switched around.
Yeah, it's a little flip-flop this week. On Monday or Tuesday, we talked a lot more of some statewide national stuff. Now here we are on Thursday, our statewide show, talking a lot more about some Minot stuff.
And lately I've realized I've been lazy.
It happens.
I just wear the same suit coat every day now.
I
just don't even care.
It happens to the best of us.
I really like the suit coat.
Exactly. You look good in it. It
it's
works.
Not even that. It's just I really like it. It's comfortable. I really enjoy the suit coat.
It's a good...
Why even worry about anything else?
Why bother? Then you look back at the videos you're in, and every one of them, you're in the same thing. Yeah. It's fine.
And some people have strong fingers around here and mess up my mic. I tell you what.
Was that
it's
one
you, Kyler?
Is it me? It probably is.
No,
I accept the blame from last Thursday.
It was the man, Rob Fuller, because he has a podcast coming out today.
Today, this afternoon, going to be... Let's talk about it, Minot, with Rob Fuller. I look forward to listening
Part
to
of
that.
what's going to be talked about is how the Minot City Council decided to be a state leader and put together a resolution that's going to be sending a letter to Bismarck saying, hey, we don't like these caps you're going to be putting on city budgets.
Exactly.
And do you know what's epic about this to me?
What?
Since we're just diving in right here. What's epic is how that a lot of people have come out and been like, oh, they just want to keep spending.
Very much so. That's been the large kind of public outcry I've seen from it on some comment sections.
Why did nobody tell Keep It Local that?
That's a great question.
Because Keep It Local came out against an initiated measure that was put on the ballot by the people that said, hey, we want this state to figure out how to change property tax.
Sure. And they did. And that was their goal.
And Keep It Local is like, no, this would take away local control from
the municipalities.
The municipalities. And now the state said, hey, we heard you, people. What we'll do is we'll just cap
the amount that your municipalities can increase spending every year.
Yeah, their property tax budgets. And so this is taking away the local control from the, if you needed to expand your fire department by 3 houses, 2 houses, 1 house, by 5 firefighters, by 10 firefighters, whatever it might be, those things that actually we do care about, then and it exceeded the budget, the 3% cap, then it just wouldn't be able to happen.
No, and I think the bigger thing, and I think it was Alderman Blessum that made the point, is this isn't even something that's as big of an effect on Minot as it would be on some smaller rural communities.
Right.
Places that, they have like a Glenburn north of town that has a minimal budget. Say they need a brand new, like either fire truck or like a road grader for the winter. That's something that's going to be a huge impact on their budget. So they're going to have to raise it by, likely more than 3%, but also on top of that, it's not like it's expected to be a long-term budget increase. It's something that would drop back down afterwards.
Do you know how much our property tax budget was?
For the city of Minot? Not off the top of my head. I'd have to pull it up.
Yeah, me too.
But even regardless, I think the city
I think it was around $26 million, though.
Okay, that sounds right.
It was in that. That's
that
not
ballpark.
A perfect number. People are going to say, you're wrong. It's this. Okay, I get it. I'm wrong. But it was in that ballpark. So if you just took 26 mil, 3% of that, 780,000. That's how much play that they have. And
it's not a lot in the grand scheme of things by any stretch. What happens when we want to build that new police station?
Right. It can't come from property tax dollars.
And not saying it should maybe, but at the same time, it's one of those things where you have to get it done at a point, and how else do you do it?
Yep.
Does at that point the state have to like administer a grant so it could get done? You have to go through the state to get extra funding.
Keeping that local control in the local municipalities. The bigger problem, though, is what about there is another flood? What about there is some type of disaster like that? what can a tornado, something like that. You know, these are real things that will happen. Oh yeah, there's going to be exceptions. You're going to be dependent on the state for those exceptions. Whatever your argument is, it's proves that you're taking away local control.
And see, the other thing with my personal biggest thing against that argument, that people say that they want to just continue spending, is that the people that initiated this resolution
this is the ridiculous part.
On Tuesday are the people that were, so specifically
that
Alderman
lowered.
Samuelson. He was one of the biggest proponents of Measure 4.
Yeah.
He is someone that is all about local control. He wants a smaller government, and if there's anyone that has been, this is the guy that proposed to defund the Minot Chamber of Commerce. I mean, this isn't someone that I feel this isn't someone that wants extra control over something. This is someone that wants to keep it within the city and within the local government.
Right.
And
yeah, it's completely ridiculous, but it also shows you, because when the proposal came out by Governor Kelly Armstrong, which we have been a fan of Governor Armstrong the whole time, we were like, this is not a good proposal. It's just not a good proposal. What they want to do is put a Band-Aid on property taxes that the state takes care of. It does not fix the property tax problem.
No.
Property taxes can continue to go up. They will go up by 3%, because if you were a local government, you'd be not smart to not hit that cap every year. You must hit that cap, because otherwise, when you actually need it, you will exceed the 3%. $780,000 is not that much money for the city of Minot.
No, in theory, this, for better or worse, incentivizes every town and municipality in the state to build up the reserves to the maximum amount they possibly can be.
Yeah, I mean, that building up reserves is going to be dependent on the mentality of the people, but it incentivizes them to max out the caps. For sure.
Undoubtedly. And I think you make a great point, because this isn't, it's just buy downs with a cap.
Right.
It's nothing. It's nothing.
The property tax still is a huge problem.
Yeah.
And as soon as the state gets into hard financial times and they say, "Hey guys, we can't do these caps anymore," the citizens are going to be stuck with the property tax.
All of a sudden, the legacy fund isn't getting
not caps, but buy downs anymore.
Exactly. All of a sudden, the legacy fund isn't getting nearly the amount of income and interest on its returns every year as it was before. Now, all of a sudden, it can't operate as the buy down factor that they want it to, and so now they have to redistribute that somewhere.
Right.
And at what point does that happen? Maybe it never does, but I feel like that's not the prudent way to look at the situation.
In the immediate, maybe it brings some level of satisfaction to the public, but in the long run, there's more problems with it than there are good things that can come from it.
To further off of that point, I see kind of two big things that come from this, maybe three, but one of them is much lesser. The lesser one being no other major city follows suit. This is just kind of a little symbolic thing Minot does, and it moves on. The two major ones are a majority of cities follow suit, and all of a sudden this is a statewide effort from municipalities to push the state legislature into not adding a cap onto anything. And so that either means it's going to force them to change the deal at this point and switch things around, or B, they're going to throw their hands up and say, we tried our effort at reform, the cities didn't like it, they want us to change, and now nothing gets done.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to know on this one.
This is pure speculation.
And I think I think for one, the part where if they do nothing, I think that'd be a mistake. And I guess they've done something, and you're saying it's rejected. If they end with this, then they've made a mistake. Obviously, there's a ton more proposals that are out there right now that they're having to weed through.
Yeah, there's 55, I think, total.
Yeah. So I don't know that this is going to be the end-all, be-all. It just still is amazing to me that the governor came out with this, and you should get him on and talk to him about it, because I don't understand how this was the fix.
On a separate issue, real fast, I am waiting on his office to return an email for comment on a separate situation.
On a separate situation.
See how that plays.
But I think two things happen. So if nothing happens in this legislative session, two things happen. One, another initiated measure, and it's going to be even closer. I don't know that it passes though, unless if it's way, way better than the other one,
Especially,
which is hard for it to be.
and on an off election, not on a general election year, and next year it would probably be 2026. It's just there's not as much turnout, so if you can really hammer in on one group to come out and vote, it can influence it a lot better that way.
But there'll be other organizations against it.
Oh, without a doubt.
So there's that. And then after that, you see a massive turnover in the legislature. And I think at that point, people will be running on property tax.
Without a doubt.
That will be the main thing to get elected. And there will be reform at that point.
But now all of a sudden we're looking... Okay,
Oh,
so
yeah, that's 4 years out.
Yeah.
But it's just ridiculous.
So if that does
2
happen,
years
this
out.
worst
2
case
years out.
scenario, no reform ends up happening, does Minot get the blame for that?
No, well, if they do, then it's irresponsible.
And it's very nearsighted.
But I think we're way too early on that conversation.
You're
the
right.
reason why is because League of Cities came out against the previous measure, and if they don't come out against this, then they need to be dismantled, man.
Oh, and you even look at what Mayor Ross was saying on Tuesday night. They were talking about when he was at the latest League of City meetings. It was apparently, according to him, this isn't a quote, but a general consensus about the members of the League of Cities, which is most of the mayors in the state, that they were against caps. But everybody saw that there was, every proposal pretty much included caps, so they were just resigned to the fact that it was going to happen. But thanks to Tuesday night city council meeting and the extended discussion that occurred, they decided to pass a resolution and take that first step and hope that other cities would follow.
I'm not for caps at all to address that. Like, I don't think I'm for caps at all, because if there's...
It's
Yeah.
not.
How about this?
Go ahead.
If a cap passes, then every person that said that was for the keep it local concept, not the group. I'm not calling out the group, but the keep it local concept, which includes local city council people. You guys made a mistake, because there was a proposal on the table that said, "Hey, no caps. You just have to change and state. You have to figure out how to pay it."
Yep.
You could have done that, and then it would have put the state in a very interesting position. They would have had to figure it out, but there would be no caps.
No, that would have been a set in stone thing at that stage.
And so now we went and we said, no, we don't want that, because it's going to take local control. And now we're inviting caps. So there better be
Pushback,
a very strong push from those same groups against this. That's first.
I know,
But
go ahead.
If you reformed property tax, and there was you actually reformed it, not put a Band-Aid, because right now, I'm making it very clear and being redundant, but these credits, that's just a Band-Aid on the problem. That is not a fix.
100%.
So if you actually reform property tax, there may be some sort of cap that would actually make sense. I have not thought that out. I have not went down that lane, but I'm saying in that setting, maybe there is. But right now, you're putting a Band-Aid on it, throwing a cap on it, and saying we fix property taxes, and that's not. It's just not true.
No, and that's the thing. Their whole goal at the actual reform part is the caps. Everyone that's a proponent of it, I agree. Everyone that's a proponent of it says that if these pass without the caps, it's just more buy downs, and there's no point at that stage. And I just don't. I want to see real change.
Right, yeah. And Miranda Schiller's biggest issue is I've yet to see a bill that reforms and addresses the issue of valuation. And that's
very much
essentially where I'm at as well.
I would love to see that.
I think that's the only way that reform actually happens.
I think that's the best starting point for reform, is fixing the mill situation and the evaluation part of it.
Yeah.
And as soon as you can simplify the mills, however that may be, and as soon as you can fix or find a better way to evaluate the properties, I think that's your best starting
Could you imagine going to a restaurant and you had to put in your annual income, and then that determined how much your meal cost?
That would be terrible.
Right. And that's basically what we do right now with property tax. You say, it's not based off annual income, it's based off house amount. You can have 1,000 square foot house and pay more than the person that has a 4,000 square foot house.
Exactly.
Simply because yours is valued higher.
Because of where it's at, it's in a better location, whatever the situation may be.
It can be location can obviously affect it dramatically, but it can just simply be because you did a way nicer job
of remodeling.
Yeah, you had the same amount. You had the same amount of stress on the or less stress on the city services that you're paying for.
So I proposed this idea to Zach last week on the show. I don't know if I talked to you about it or not, but I have I have an idea of how that could be potentially resolved. And there's a lot of loopholes and workarounds around it as well. But this is my little thought that I have, and it's to impose rolling averages on your property value over like a 5 to 10 year period for how the properties are valued. So you take effectively the evaluation process stays generally the same for how they evaluate the property, but the price point figure that they take to levy the mills off of is spread out over a 10-year time frame. So if, say, they just decide to raise your house's value by $50,000 one year, all of a sudden the last 5 years come into account, and now you take the mean or the average of that time frame, and that's where you come to your number at.
Yeah.
I don't know if that would work, and like I said, I'm sure there's a plethora of ways to worm around that, but it feels like it's an actual start.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Makes sense. Miranda Schuler says purchase price is public knowledge. Valuation should be tied to purchase price. I don't.
I've heard that a lot, and I
don't agree with that.
You don't?
No.
So and there's because on one side, if it is the purchase price, if it's like you buy it in the 70s, it's for $50,000, and it's now worth $400,000. All of a sudden, it's
and also if I buy a house from my friend because we have an agreement of some other type, or because he's giving me it, or it's a family deal, and you pay half the price because love was involved, then it's also not fair either. But I don't know.
And I would love to see. I think that you could work into or find a way to evaluate with the starting price, but just not keeping it at that and just trying to use it as a better influence source. Like I don't know how to there needs to be a better way, and obviously we're trying to finesse some thoughts.
But the purchase price does influence the current process
for sure.
It's held within 10% of it.
Okay, fair.
Or it's not purchase price, the appraised value.
The appraised
value is
based off of that purchase.
It's all tied together right there.
That's where their starting number comes from. I believe, at least. And
I mean, the bank isn't going to go. You could pay over the appraised value, but you definitely. Let's see. If the house appraises for $250,000, you're not going to get a loan for $280,000, right? Mm-hmm. So the appraised value is going to hold up pretty close to the purchase price. Mm-hmm. So
that's reasonable.
The purchase price is already dictating what it is. But Fuller makes farmers still pay little to nothing on property taxes. Great fix. They held a great amount of wealth in the state and still pay almost nothing. This is a conversation that needs to be had. Randa Schuler says in transfer situations, another option would need to be used like appraised value. I don't know. I think that the valuation needs to change.
Yeah, I agree. I think this, and with the farmers situation specifically, I think there's a way to work around that where they still get the best of both worlds, where the state or the local places get a little bit more revenue source from them, but they're also still not getting hosed on what they're doing. And obviously their subsidies will still be in place or whatever. But at that point, if you can find a way to tax just a minute percentage of the amount of tillable or acreage they have, some kind of extent of that. I'm not sure how it would work. You'd probably make a lot of farmers mad doing that, but I agree the inequity in that is definitely palpable.
Yeah. Chris says our legislators are all old farmers.
And that's a point though. And you even look at we've talked about this ad nauseum, but look at the history of it, and that's where a lot of the party's basis started in the state, was from those agrarian populists back in the turn of the 20th century. And we've really built into the place we're at now off of the back of our farmers. And going forward, why North Dakota voted for a state, I believe, why North Dakota voted nationally for a Republican president since LBJ, but from the 60s all the way up through 2008, our whole delegation was Democrat. And I think the biggest reason for that is because a lot of those Democrats at that time especially were a lot more pro-farmers and pro-farm subsidies, and they wanted to protect them, and it was a little bit lesser so in the Republican side, but they thought that, fiscally responsible Republicans were better to run the country.
Yeah. Yeah. Rob Fuller says quarters of land sell between 5 to 900K. They pay a few $100s of tax.
Yeah, again, that's just some inequity that needs to be addressed at that stage.
Right. Interesting discussion for sure. We came out of the gate guns a-blazing on property tax.
We were rolling today. I was ready.
Yeah.
I was ready Tuesday night. I just wasn't. It's the one time I leave a city council meeting early because. So obviously Trinity, the situation happened there. We can address that in depth on Tuesday maybe, but that happened. I tried to speak with the CEO, John Kutch, afterwards, and effectively after that there was public appearances, and then it went straight to the MAC EDC report, and I assumed, this is going to be a long report, and afterwards they're just going to wrap up.
But you weren't the only one that assumed that.
I wasn't.
Who else assumed that?
From the best of my knowledge, I believe KX News thought that too.
Nice.
Because not only from the article I shared with you last night, I watched their little news story on it, and it's like the last 15 minutes of the council meeting never happened.
Yeah.
It's they just talk about the discussion that occurred prior to the Macadec presentation, and they say no resolution specifically to a bill had been passed, which they didn't specifically address any bill, sure.
Right.
But at the same time, they definitely passed a resolution to the state saying that they are against any cap on any bill.
A letter there. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's epic. But it's some of those things are hard to track too. So
undoubtedly, and it's if you're not there again, I wasn't there live for it, but when I went home, I continued watching it on my phone, and I was blown away when it happened. I know I texted you. I was shocked when Samuelson put the motion forward.
Oh yeah, that was a crazy surprise for sure.
I wasn't ready for it.
Nope. Yeah, you talked to John Kutch, CEO?
I did.
Did he say he'd do an interview?
Yeah, he said he wasn't opposed. I don't think he would do a podcast with us, but he seemed at least open to an interview. So we're going to try to contact Alice, and we'll see how it goes.
Sounds good. That's awesome.
We'll give it a shot at least, right?
Yep, for sure.
That was a fun council meeting. Do you want to go into depth on the Trinity thing?
Yeah,
or should we?
Might as well.
Okay. So obviously with the Planning Commission, Trinity brought out the big guns again on Tuesday. Had the CEO in town. They had their COO, I believe, their chief of staff all come speak. The big thing that I know that they wanted to, that they pushed in why Trinity, I guess why they shouldn't allow another, or I think the big thing is that they should delay this.
At first it was don't allow it. Now they're saying delay it.
Yeah. And so, because Trinity is such a major impact in the community, they put so much back into the community, and they do so much for Minot, and that was a lot of the arguments presented. And
it's epic.
Yeah.
So, I'm using that word a lot today. I don't know why. But so first off, this is a zoning issue. We all know this. We've talked about this part of it. This is just a zoning issue.
And Lisa Olson put it best, I think.
Yeah,
because she personally said she wasn't necessarily for the for-profit hospital,
right? But
the amendment on or the resolution, the agenda item on the table is just an approval of rezoning.
Mm-hmm. That's the only thing that's on the table, and so City Council did great by going and keeping that as a subject matter. Mm-hmm. Why is Trinity worried about it? Well, it's competition, but competition comes and goes. Okay, mm-hmm. So I don't see, like, people, if a competitor comes to town, like, you might be like, all right, what do we need to do differently to make sure that we are solid, that we're taken care of, right? Mm-hmm. But you don't go, like, unless if you're trying to really protect something, that you're really trying to hold on to something, you don't fight it, like, to this degree, in my opinion.
That's fair.
You know,
I agree.
Like, if you feel like you're the best,
you embrace it.
You're not worried about it. Like, here's the deal. We're going to have a competitor. Mm-hmm. Let's start planning the buyout options now. Yeah. Because we're the best. People love us, and we're going to keep on.
Within 2-3 years, they're going to fold, and we're going to buy them out and add to our bag of tricks at that point.
The alternate deal is, oh, no, what is this going to do? And I think Trinity right now is very concerned about staffing because that's a subject that keeps coming up. Mm-hmm. I don't think this other company is worried about staffing.
I don't think so.
Which is crazy. It's not crazy,
but it's
crazy.
Especially in the local market with how we've seen things, because, and maybe it's a sense of hubris for them not to be worried about it, but at the same time, they probably have plans in place on how to address the situation.
Right, because this isn't the first time that they've came into a town that has had a ER with massive wait times.
Exactly.
It's not the first time. And so what they know, most likely, and I mean, I don't have inside information or anything like that. What they know is that, in a situation like this, most likely the morale at the current hospital is probably not where it needs to be. We'll be able to get some employees from there. We have our national network that we already market to bring in nurses, and
they might even have a transition team on the ready to come up and get things rolling.
So they already have all that strategy in place. It's not a concern for them, but it's a concern for Trinity because they're struggling right now. And quite frankly, I mean, we talk about it more on the podcast with Rod that will be coming out today. But I just think Trinity does not take care of their employees well enough.
No, they might think they do, but this could be a situation akin to the department, the PD investigation. They might make the decisions that are right in the instance, but the perception of it from across the board is negative, and so at a certain point, the perception becomes reality, and we are sitting in that reality right now.
Yeah, I think an interesting statement or messages that were sent by Trinity was, one, the reason why you should not allow this new hospital is because we put so much money back into the community. Two, one of the head nurses, or I forget what her title was, says nursing pay, well, you can never pay them enough or something along those lines. Yeah, that was
at the planning commission meeting.
Yeah.
Yep, I remember that.
Yeah, she said something like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're putting all this money back into the community, yet your staff feels like they're not getting paid enough, and that's by your own admission. I think that's something that needs to be looked at. I mean, I've heard stuff that insinuated that there'd be people that would be very much interested in leaving to a new,
I've heard
ER hospital.
Yeah, I've heard rumblings already as well, and
and that's not breaking news. It's just
that's if you talk to someone that works at Trinity as a healthcare provider, there's a chance that could come up.
Right.
And one interesting thing that was mentioned, I think it was from, I don't know if it was the chief of staff or their COO, but they straight up outright admitted that ER wait times were unacceptable.
Interesting, but I think it was good. Honestly, out of those testimonies, his testimony was one that I enjoyed the most. And the reason why is because it felt like it actually came from the heart. And that's, the other ones all seems a little bit prepared. Yeah. So everybody else focused on why the for-profit system would be terrible. He focused on the fact that, we do have bad wait times, and it's something that we're trying to address. And I think that the plan that we're instituting now is going to fix it in the next year. Well, maybe it's too little too late. But I think it was something where, like, hey, we're aware of the problems that we have, and we're trying to fix it. And if you would have had messages like that 2 years ago from executives, then perhaps perception would be different.
Especially as they were getting ready to transition to the new hospital facility. If they would have had, because it was already bad wait times at the old facility. And then when they were moving, I don't know if they just assumed that would be the fix-all, or if they had a private thought process in mind for how to address it, and it just didn't work as effectively as they thought, or whatever the case might be. But here we are in these brand new facilities, and the wait times are just as bad, if not worse.
Yeah, right. In Trinity's defense, and this is one thing that I will say, is that it's got to be hard being that big of a company in a small town.
100%.
They've gotten ripped for how that new hospital happened, and maybe some of it was completely as bad as people try to make it out to be.
And on the flip side, I mean, you look at the delays that happened when that explosion occurred. That's out of their control.
Right. But then because of the perception of Trinity by some, it was like, of course there would be an explosion at the Trinity Hospital was almost as reasoning of some people. Yeah. Like just the amount of negativity that they get
just the cynicism that goes towards it. Yeah,
it's pretty incredible, and honestly, I haven't always enjoyed that. So they're in a difficult spot there. Even all like how the building is done and how they say that it wasn't built right and all this. There's a lot of stuff that's said like that.
No.
And so I think some is like, if you're in a town of a few million, people just don't care. They're like, okay, we got a good as long as there's good, as long as there's good service, we got a good hospital. Who cares?
Yeah.
We're not worried about it.
And in the market like Minot, it's so much easier to nitpick and to find faults in it especially because they are our lone emergency provider.
That was for you, Councilman Fuller. I was becoming too one-sided, so I had to turn into Switzerland.
That's interesting.
Go away. Today I think that's epic. So, all right, we're gonna go to a quick 60-second break.
Real fast.
We'll be back right after this. Well,
maybe
we won't be going to a break. We'll try this way.
We tried.
In the demanding world of oil and gas, precision, safety, and efficiency are non-negotiable. Unmanned operator drone services revolutionizes how you monitor, inspect, and manage your operations. With cutting-edge technology and expert operators, we deliver real-time data, detailed reports, and actionable insights for our valuable clients. Why risk the safety of your team or waste precious time? Our drones access even the most challenging areas with ease, reducing downtime and enhancing safety across your sites. We take the guesswork out of your projects by offering LiDAR, mapping, and inspection services so that your projects stay safe, on budget, and on time. Unmanned operator drone services, where technology meets safety, precision, and efficiency. Contact us today to elevate your operations. Yes, pun intended.
All right.
What an ad.
What an ad. What's your favorite one?
I love it. But going back into the state side, before we get into interesting state legislator, I found just real quick update. Governor Armstrong and the tourism department came out yesterday and announced their new tourism campaign. It's called Hello North Dakota. Yeah. Kind of a basic name, but it's kind of a cool little initiative because they went to, I guess, 15 different locations around the state, whether it be small businesses, tourist attractions, whatever it might be. Yep. And they just went and filmed unscripted the people there, asked them questions. And I think it sounds like a kind of a cool little initiative. I'm excited to see the actual video proposals that come from it, and the ad campaign gets rolled out, because it's obviously the North Dakota Legendary has been around for a while, and that's the big Josh DeMel one. And so I'm interested to see how this
finally get something different.
Yeah, it works, the North Dakota Legendary, but this will be an interesting little turn of change of pace for the city, or the state, excuse me, on that one.
That is cool.
I thought so. And then so yesterday I was listening to Joel Heitkamp's radio show, and he had Dustin Garrelow on, and they were talking they talked about Minot, and they were talking about a few different items. And one thing that they talked about at the latter part of their discussion was a proposal that was brought forth by Representative Steve Vetter out of Grand Forks, and that is one that I think it was 1532. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's an act to provide appropriation to the Legislative Assembly for hiring temporary legislative assistants, and it's especially for when the turnover after the campaign, the term limit starts to come into effect. Okay, and so this is a way to evaluate excess room in the Capitol building that is underutilized spaces that can be consolidated, and then to find spots for these potential assistants. And I think it's like $3.5 million is assigned to it. So it's a temporary position that would be available for when session is in effectively, but they would be hiring people to it would be aides for the legislators. And I don't like spending more money, but in the sense we've now limited ourselves so heavily with the term limits, I think this is a great move. Right. I hope this gets passed. I think Steve Vetter did a great job. Then I just went and started looking at him, and so first off, he has a
found a new hero, is what you're saying?
I don't know if I go that far, but I do enjoy what he has to offer. But He has, I think he has 48 total bills sponsored, whether it
Nice.
be directly or co-sponsor. Yeah, he's been around for a long time, and a couple other ones he has a few of note, but one other one, he wants to reenact a section of the state century code that relates to false information and false reports that's given to police. So if you give a false report to a police officer, this would be instituting it as a punishable offense with actual imposed penalty on it.
Gotcha. Wow.
I think that's fun. I would love to see that. And hey, Steve is
Ray Stewart's.
Yeah, district rep. See, look
There
at
you
that.
go. He's working hard.
He is. He's doing a lot of work without a doubt. And, you know, he's been around since, what is it? He got elected in 2016, so this is his fifth assembly. Yep. But one other one he had a couple different ones with tinting laws too. So like for how to tint your windows and to lessen the fine on such. And so he had
and allow them to be a little darker.
Yeah, I believe that's what it was from how I looked at it. Yeah. And to change the fining principles on them. He had this one I really liked. It is a sales tax exemption for thrift or secondhand clothing stores or nonprofit clothing stores.
Okay.
And
I could see the nonprofit ones for sure.
Mm-hmm. I'm interested in it. I think it could provide an efficient and effective kind of way for low income people to get an extra little boost. And who doesn't love to thrift shop? Save a few extra bucks doing it that way.
Right. Yeah. Definitely use the consumer. But I mean, also some of that stuff, like it's already at its full value. It's already been paid sales tax on.
Without a doubt. It's already been purchased once.
Yeah.
So at one point, that's a fair point. You can argue that it already has been, the state's already benefited off of it.
Because then, I mean, when you get into that conversation, then why do you not have to pay sales tax on Facebook Marketplace stuff or BizMan?
That's a good point, yeah.
And there probably is state law that probably directs that you do have to, but it probably just isn't really followed.
It's one of those,
yeah. It'd be difficult to do so.
It would be so hard to follow each and every single individual transaction that happens in that situation.
For the sales tax
yeah.
part. I know for income tax you're supposed to.
Yeah, you're supposed to claim those.
Yeah.
But
that's something you should be doing there, Kyler, okay?
If I sold on Marketplace, I would claim every penny, I promise.
Okay.
Just like everyone that sells on eBay claims everything too.
Just everything, yep.
But I don't know. I saw Steve Vetter. I was kind of impressed by a couple of the things he had introduced, and obviously just at the sheer depth of bills he co-sponsored was interesting too.
Right.
But this leads to another point of topic I kind of wanted to discuss, and they talked about this in Heitkamp's show yesterday, and we've talked about similar veins. Do you propose, or could the legislator enact a cap on bills that legislators are able to propose every biennium?
Oh, interesting. That would, again, just be too much government.
It feels like it would be, right?
If you'd be better off figuring out the finances. Chris says technically you do have to pay sales tax on that stuff, but it's your responsibility. I learned that in an audit. That's a bad time to learn that.
Oops.
Sorry, man. Sorry.
That sucks.
Yeah. Yeah, I forget.
Where were we? Yeah, that took me for a loop. Capping the amount of bills that legislators can introduce every biennium.
Yeah.
So
at that point, you should just go to a second.
I agree, and I by all means agree on that. But it's government becoming bigger in almost an effort to make it smaller, and it's a weird cycle that would be stuck in at that point.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how that would work, but again, we've discussed this ad nauseum, but something needs to be done.
Yeah. I think something's going to have to be done with the term limits. So, yeah, very good. Well, you have a little update for us, man.
I do.
You're sending emails to the governor and stuff?
I've sent an email to a few people because I am writing an article that hopefully is going to come out tomorrow on something that Mr. Charles Hofer has been up to this week. He has got some support from some local economic development chambers in Bottineau and Dunseith, and they have sent a letter to the governor's office, as well as Senator Kent Weston has authored a letter and got 16 state legislators to sign off on it as well. And that has also been presented to the governor's office, and they are now awaiting response. I haven't heard anything today. If anything, today, as if anything happened yesterday, excuse me. So I have sent out request for comment from the governor, a couple other people that were involved in the bill, and I'm still waiting to hear back. I sent those out yesterday afternoon, but hopefully, if everything goes well for Mr. Hofer, he can negotiate a deal with the state through this process. He can actually set up an in-person meeting with the governor. He can get out of a lot of his mishaps that have happened with the Commerce Department. His loans can become either unfroze or repaid and negated effectively, so we can move on, get other sorts income, revenue streams, investors.
Are you saying negated, or are you saying unfroze so he can get new funding?
That's the better way to put it. Yeah, unfroze so he can get.
He's not looking for them to be forgiven.
Not by any means, and that's one thing that he is actually adamant about. Is he is all the way willing to repay the loans still. He just needs them to be unfroze so he can get other lines of credit, so he can get other investors involved, because as of right now, when a state commerce department is, freezing your loans, that's not a good look to outside investors.
Right, for sure.
So
basically, done some reaching out to state officials for this article you're putting out. Also, we have been in contact with Mr. Hofer himself, looking to get another podcast put together, kind of updating where we're at on that stuff. A lot of people reached out wanting to know what's next in the Dunseith debacle. This is on this side of it. Obviously, there's two sides to the debacle. There's the state side with the loans, and then there's the
potential
stuff that was at the property that shouldn't have been at the property. What happens there? Stuff. I don't know that we have as much update on that side of it.
No, that side is still pretty much where it was at last note. It is sitting there. Some stuff is still sitting there, and it is waiting to be either taken or addressed in a better manner.
Absolutely. So we should be having some of that stuff. Stay tuned to mydakota.com for that article, and then hopefully, no promises, but hopefully sometime next week there is a podcast that comes out.
That is the goal, but yeah, again, no guarantees. We'll see how it plays out. We look forward to speaking with them again, and hopefully this whole situation can finally get put to rest for everyone's benefit.
Boom. It was a good time.
It was.
All right. Well, if you have some input, obviously we love to hear your comments. So comment, let us know what your thoughts are on some of the stuff we talked about today. Be sure to like and subscribe to the Dakotan as we continue to bring you relevant information to North Dakota and Minot. And thank you for watching this episode, and have yourself a fantastic day.